All right, guys, welcome back to this episode of Speed Up and Get Your Hits. This is just a show about shooting by some shooters and guys that like to get better at shooting, and that's hopefully what these conversations are helpful for. We talk a lot about training and getting better, and hopefully help our listeners do the same. My name is Billy. I'm with SpecTrain. I've got Brennan with me, like usual, from Gateway Defense. And we've got a special guest with us on this episode, Alastair Steward. Welcome, man. Thanks for joining, guys.
Thanks for having me.
Hell yeah, man.
Absolutely. So this is kind of a part of our little mini series we've been doing here recently. I think we're just calling "Getting Good in a Hurry," for lack of a better name, and bringing some guys on that haven't been shooting for maybe ever like that long, right? Got into the sport and maybe shooting in general somewhat recently, but have managed to kind of climb the ranks and get better in a short period of time. Talking about kind of what that takes, what's involved, and hopefully sharing some tips and tricks along the way for what's for guys that are looking to do the same out there, right? So, Alastair, just to kind of let the people know kind of where you're coming from a little bit. I refreshed my memory a little bit. Did the whole practice score stalking thing again. So you've been in it for a little bit now. Started like right at the end of kind of 2023, competing a little bit here and there. Is that fair? And kind of dipped your toe into different stuff, steel challenge, rifle matches, some different things like that, and then very quickly settled into USPSA as the main thing, right?
Yeah, and even the steel challenge matches and stuff like that. I shot my first match, which was a USPSA match, in November of 23, and immediately was like, I want to do this all the time and get good at it. So steel challenge was like the next match that was whatever. I was like, I want to sign up for this thing and that thing. And when I started, I thought I was gonna really want to do like two-gun stuff. But then I think, as a result of there like just not being that many two-gun matches available, and also just pistol being so interesting, pretty quickly kind of honed in on USPSA stuff and have just been doing as much of that as I can since then.
Nice. So, yeah, you kind of hit it a little bit. That was going to kind of be the next question. Is like what kind of got you into competition in general, and then I guess you kind of answered it. But what led you to USPSA specifically? But how did you kind of get into it? How did you even hear about competition shooting as the thing, and what made you want to get started?
Yeah, I started kind of wanting to train a little bit and be able to conceal carry in a responsible way, and kind of have the skills I needed. Probably like mid 2023. And so started kind of, getting to the range more and just trying to get better a little bit. And at some point I had seen a YouTube video or something of a competition. And I was like, I wonder how you go do that. Kind of figured out how you find a match and sign up, and kind of watch some YouTube videos on like, shooting your first match and what you need. And kind of realized that, that it's kind of set up to be pretty approachable if you're new and want to try it. And so I went and tried it, and yeah, was just hooked immediately. Was not very good at first, obviously, but was like, this is so awesome. I really want to get better at it, and dove in pretty hard, pretty immediately from there.
What was your initial classification, and what division did you start shooting?
I started in carry optics with a Glock.
Okay.
Because who doesn't?
As you do.
Yeah, as you do. I'm pretty sure my initial classification was. I'm almost certain it was B class. I don't think it was C. I think it was B. And then like took me a little bit to get into A class.
Yeah.
So it definitely was not like an immediate, knocking it out of the park situation.
From the people I've talked to who were pretty decent at shooting, or maybe thought they were pretty decent at shooting before they started USPSA, but like had some sort of background or some sort of training, or taking training classes, like typically that's where I see people come in, like initial classification B, and then they start figuring out like literally just going to like maybe more than 4 or 5 matches, and A class comes around, and then the fight is like for like classing up is like for M and G. But it seems like, how much experience did you have before, just with like serious training and shooting before USPSA? Was it not much, or?
Yeah, almost none. So
That's
up
crazy.
until like halfway through 2023, once every like 2 years, I would go like to a flat range with a friend and like, rent a gun or shoot some,
Yeah.
whatever, buy some very expensive handgun ammo and shoot 50 rounds. But yeah, not much. And
Hmm.
then it was about halfway through 2023 when I decided I wanted to, start being able to carry more and kind of have the skills needed to do that responsibly, which is when I started applying myself to it a little bit more. And then pretty quickly went to a match and was like, oh, this is the thing. This
Nice.
is the
Wow. That's really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, from what I can observe, so this was obviously we're still talking a little bit before you and I kind of met at all, but from what I can observe, it seems like you took getting better pretty seriously, like pretty quickly, which like seems obvious for competition, but like it's not the story for everyone. I always talk about you pretty much any local you go to, you'll find the guy that's been in B class shooting a match last weekend for 20 years and is not even particularly interested in getting better. It's just like a fun social thing to do on the weekends, right? It's like going and playing golf with your buddies or whatever. But you got after it pretty quick. It seems like how did you kind of get into that? What did your training like kind of journey look like? Did you go take classes? Did you just start working a lot on your own? How did that kind of start for you in terms of trying to get better after those first couple matches?
Yeah. So I'm someone who, for better or for worse, I kind of am either 100% or 0% on stuff.
Yeah.
I'm really terrible at taking things casually and
Right.
just having fun and stuff like that. If I'm not kind of all in on it, I have a hard time caring enough about it to even bother to get out of bed to go do it.
Right.
So pretty quickly, I was like, oh, what's dry firing's the thing? What's that about? And what about this? And what about that? And I'd taken a concealed carry class at a range local to me with Sean Burrows, and I ended up doing some private lessons with him, which was super helpful. And yeah, I think really helped me kind of build a foundation pretty quickly. And even from then, I've taken like 2 classes, I think. I took a Joey Sauerland's class, and then there's an awesome guy local to me, Leo DeLeon, who did a dry fire class that I took as well. And then other than that, it's been a lot of just experimenting with different stuff, like watching videos, listening to podcasts, reading books, and just trying different stuff in my training and continuing to do the stuff that works and like jettisoning the stuff that doesn't work and seeing, what helps with the results. And then also like, what I'm doing with you, Billy, with the video review, done that in a couple of different places. And I think that's been super helpful as well, just to get another perspective.
Nice.
But that's been what most of it has looked like.
That like obsession, X factor is like very real and underrated. I feel like, it's one of those things like, you can like discipline can take you a long way for sure. Like if you really dedicate yourself and like force yourself to do the thing. But if you're going up against somebody else out there who's like actually obsessed with it and like can't put the gun down when they're at home, it's going to be hard to overcome that. Right. That's I hear that, that kind of thing a lot. For sure.
I think to get to a high level, you kind of have to have that pretty much. Like I think maybe everybody I've spoken to who's like reached a somewhat high level in the sport, it feels that way. Way more so than guys who just care about like being a good American and carrying a gun. Like those guys I will see a lot of times be like, you know what? Like I'm pretty squared away. Like I'm going to focus on other things for the next year or so. And they continue carrying and they're probably a great person to have on your side. Like, but they're not interested in pushing performance to the highest level. And like conversely, when I'll see somebody and it's pretty rare, but somebody will just be like, you know what? I've got to take a break from shooting. Like I'm going to get into motorcycles. And I'm just like, what? Like really? Like it's so shocking. It's like, it's hard to fathom for me.
And it's like totally fair, by the way. We're not talking crap about these people. It's like, I tell people all the time, like, I'm not like the example of how to live your life. Like I do shooting. Mm-hmm. And I'm meanwhile like not as good at a bunch of other things as I probably should be, right? Like I'm not like being super balanced. Like I just do the shooting thing pretty much only. And that's probably not the way, right? Actually. But if you want to be good at shooting, it is kind of the way. So
Yeah.
Yeah, just
we have a
interesting.
little bubble of very like-minded people, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I sometimes I envy the people who can just do stuff casually when people are like, I'm just
Definitely.
having fun. Like I don't know that I could have had fun.
Definitely.
Like,
I told my dad that finally a couple years ago. He tries to drag me into like a family like golf game once every 2 years, whatever. I'm like, Dad, I can't play golf one more time. I just can't do it because if I play one more time, I'm gonna be the best golfer. I'm gonna have like all the stuff. I'm gonna have and I just can't afford it right now. I don't have the time. Like I can't play one more time. I'm never playing golf again, or it's gonna be bad. Like, it's a thing for sure. Okay, so when you were kind of getting into it, obviously you kind of talked about the process for training. We'll dive into some details there. What did you notice, which was like the biggest thing you needed to work on, would you say, when you first kind of started, and how did you attack that?
It's a good question. I'm trying to think back. I mean, it was definitely everything,
Definitely everything.
when I
I like
first started,
that.
because I didn't even have like really good fundamentals or anything
Okay.
from doing other kinds of stuff. It was
Yeah.
really like, I had some natural aptitude, and as you said, I wanted to do it a lot and apply myself to it. But it was, I basically needed to get better at everything, and
Okay.
so kind of cycling between focusing on fundamental stuff in different ways, trying to understand different ways of approaching that, and then into movement and other things like that, more kind of competition oriented things. It was kind of across the board. Needed to figure out how to do it all.
How did you know that you needed to work on everything? Like, or how did you know that like your fundamentals weren't that great? Like, what exposed you to that? Was it just like match standings, or was it like you saw somebody else doing something different, or like watching YouTube videos, or like what was it?
Yeah, I think it was. I mean, I think it was all of that. All of the above. My first match, I think I came. We have really big local matches at my local club, which is awesome. I think I was like 200th or something overall. And it's like, well, that's not going to work. And then, watching other people, watching people who are really good shoot, working with, with coaches or taking lessons with people or whatever it might be. And also just looking at what I was able to do and wanting it to be better, being frustrated that it was what it was, whether it was my groups or how my doubles or transitions or movement or any of that stuff, watching videos and matches, stuff like that, kind of all of the above, and then just wanting to improve, just kind of continuously improve. And so I've always kind of been looking for what are the things I need to focus on kind of right now. Where am I noticing I've been working on this, so that, so my standing and shooting and my transitions and things like that are better, but now my shooting on the move is, not where I want it to be. So I need to work on that. Like that's kind of been a continuous process since the beginning.
Nice. So you would you say that you kind of tended to work, or maybe this has changed, but tend to work in kind of those like hyper focused blocks where you're not trying to work on like all the things every day, but the kind of like focusing on one major thing where you want to gain improvement for maybe a week or two, and then switch it up? Or how does that kind of work for you best, have you found?
Yeah, it was, especially initially, it was definitely like there would be, probably too many, probably like 3 to 5 things, that, because I couldn't just have, one. They definitely couldn't just have one. I was like, there's more than one thing, so I can't just be one thing.
Right.
But yeah, with 3 to 5 things, anywhere from something like, reloads to something very specific, like, entering in on a port or shooting steel on the move or whatever it might be, based on and for a long time, it was just my whatever, I was mostly shooting locals. Like last year, 2024, I didn't really understand majors and how signing up worked and stuff until too late. So I didn't get to shoot a
Right.
bunch of them. And so I'd shoot, local as often as I could. After that local, here would be the things that I felt like held me back. So I'll try to find drills or other ways, set things up to help me work on that, and kind of just rinse and repeat. And for a while, I tried to have a kind of like a master list of the things that needed to be worked on and try to make sure that I was kind of working my way through them. But I never really got that exactly to work the way I wanted to, but have definitely kind of, thought about things like movement related things, shooting related things, vision related, like it's kind of those buckets of skills. But it was really just based on what I felt like I needed to work on from the last match that I shot.
Nice. So you mentioned getting into majors, last year, some stuff out west. I think it's fair to say probably started around that 80% range. Some of those early majors, that kind of thing, have worked up like pretty well. It's been cool to see. So like less than a year from starting to shoot majors. I mean, we just shot Area 5 with you was maybe one of the, I don't know if you have better examples, but that was cool to me. Came in second at that one. You've won several majors now, but maybe not against like super high level GMs or whatever. But like at that one, you were like came in second by like less than 1% to a world champion at an area match, which was super cool to see, right? So, what has in that year, right, as you've kind of made that big of a jump in match standings? Let's get hit. What is the kind of like the practice or training like schedule looked like for you? Is it mostly dry fire? Is it, a lot of live fire stuff? Like how much, how often, that kind of thing?
Yeah. So that structure hasn't changed much over the last like year and a half. So generally, I try to have most weekends I'm shooting a match, hopefully, if I can. There's usually a local somewhere, or this year majors. Usually 1 to 2 range days. It was one. I've been doing more dry fire at the range, and so now it's more like two of those. One like rest day where I don't do anything shooting related, and the rest will be like an hour of dry fire on whatever the remaining number of days is. Right. And then the range days is usually like 3 to 4 hours there doing various things. So that's roughly what it's looked like. Obviously how I've spent that time has changed, but that's been a pretty consistent pattern. But even, I travel a good amount for work and for other things. Like when I travel, unless I like legally can't, like I'm taking my gun, I'm taking targets, I'm going to keep dry firing. I really, really try not to let that slip and try to keep that up. And I want to feel like, even if the training I'm doing isn't perfect, like I'm always doing something to kind of continue to improve.
I dig it. So let's talk through that a little bit. So shooting a major, shooting a match, a week on average, obviously a lot of matches this year for sure. It's funny. We talk with some guys about that. I think that shooting matches is super fun. But it's like, man, if you really want to get better, like that training side is potentially even more important, I feel like, sometimes, than shooting matches. And a lot of people, can only live fire like one day a week, like on Saturday or whatever. So it's like, man, if you're shooting that match every weekend, not getting the training piece in, but you're obviously balancing it with a good bit of training on top of that, which is cool. What's the biggest thing that you feel like you get out of shooting all of those matches? Is it like just you feel like having that match experience has been super helpful and kind of figuring out that and trying different things? Are you experimenting at matches? Is it just to get more homework? Like, what are you really getting out of the match side shooting that many?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it is just wanting to get match reps. I mean, being relatively new to the sport, and wanting to just get reps shooting matches. Even at the locals, like we have an awesome local club that's competitive, being like there are some really great shooters there. So I'm always trying. So sometimes I'm more nervous at a local than I am at a major, because I really want to win, and it's not easy. Right. It's not easy to do. And so I think just getting the reps of the mental game, and then also I have occasionally used a match to shoot in a not match mode way as sort of an experiment, which has been really useful, especially when I've shot matches like extra aggressive, to see what happens and taking more risks and seeing what happens. But most of the time I'm just using it to continuously apply my kind of match mode and understand what I need to do to improve it. So I still feel like, I'm getting tons of value. It's not really affecting my amount of training, because I'm not, I'm training the amount I would be anyway. Maybe I'd dry fire that day. instead of going to the match. But I don't think I'm missing out there. This year, I'm shooting, I think, like 20 majors, which is, I will not do that again.
It's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. I will not be doing that again. It is too much it is too much, and it does cut into the time and resources available for training. But, as I said, I shot, I think, like 2 or 3 majors last year, and I wanted to very quickly get a lot of reps at majors to build that skill set and that experience set. And so I think it's been worth it for that. But I will not be doing that again anytime soon.
I like it. So other than just like the experience side, anything specific you can think of, or maybe a couple things that you've learned from shooting all those majors that you feel like is different than what you were taking away from locals, or is it just kind of more the same thing, or what's different about that for you?
Yeah, I mean, so for me, it's, what the thing that is most that I'm working towards is results at majors. And so I think it is the amount of shooting obviously is different, going to different ranges. The stage design is going to be different, shooting against really high level people, even just the logistics of getting there and what you have to do to, not feel like crap at the end of 2 days in the heat or whatever it might be. I think all of that has been super useful. And also just getting a baseline at a bunch of majors to understand, like, to have something to understand progress against has been really useful. So I think all of those things, and then plus the same stuff, just at a kind of different intensity that I get from shooting locals. So the mental game side of it, the stage strategy side of it, the consistency side, the recovering from train wrecks, the, figuring out how to use scores, looking at scores to your advantage, all of that kind of stuff has been really useful.
Yeah, that was. It seems like it mirrors some of my experience as well. When I start shooting majors, it's like, man, it really is a whole different process. And like, it's funny the things you take away that, obviously, like the shooting stuff, super important. Like, you got to be good at shooting to be good at majors. But there is other things that are not shooting related. Like, I should always bring rain gear, like regardless of what the forecast is or whatever. Like those little things about actually traveling to and kind of executing a major match that kind of make a difference just in terms of kind of your process, right? You had an interesting note in there about quote unquote improving your match mode, right? Noticing things that happen at matches and making an adjustment there. I love that. I always, there's homework you take away from majors, which is like, I need more skill development in a particular area, right? And then there's also things where it's like, okay, I have the skills to make that shot, but I just didn't do it, right? So what can I adjust about the process, my preparation for that stage run, right? What can I change about the process to make sure I don't make that mistake again in the future, right? How do you feel like your match mode has been adjusted or changed? And then maybe it's just a lot of little tiny things, but anything specific you feel like you've kind of changed about that process to improve performance and consistency there?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what I've been kind of experimenting with over the last couple of months has been what kind of my mental model should be for match mode generally. And it's really about figuring out how to apply the aggression, but also the accuracy. And, I found that I was kind of frustrated with how I was shooting at majors, and, people who I shoot with, like at locals and train with, would say that it sort of looked like I was shooting differently, more tentatively, like kind of definitely, shooting not to lose rather than to win, which, depending on how you shoot when you're shooting not to lose can be fine. But for me, it was, I think it was holding me back. So experimenting with how do I want to, like, what kind of mode do I want to try to put myself in for each stage, to execute whatever the plan is to kind of get the best results over the course of a match has been something that I've been experimenting with a lot and am continuing to try to figure out. So that's probably been the biggest thing, and especially figuring out how to introduce like an appropriate level and type of aggression without messing up the consistency. Utah State was not a good example of that. Had some real train wrecks at Utah State.
Tell me about it.
It's all part of the process. So I think that's been the main thing. I mean, in terms of like the more micro stuff, I have done a lot of, I've always done a lot of kind of visualizing and trying to make sure my plan is locked in and stuff like that. So obviously sometimes I make mistakes, but it's been less about the micro process stuff and more about kind of the overarching mental model I want to apply to each time I'm shooting in match mode.
Yeah. So I've got a couple questions kind of based on some of that. So number one, something I've noticed just from stalking you on Practice Score a little bit, you're very fast shooter, like 100%, like keeping pace with all the fast GMs, right? That is like not something that I'm good at, something that I've been working on for like a year and slowly getting there. What role did shooting majors play in your like speed development? Because like the level of speed that you have is not generally, I would say, typical for somebody who's been shooting as little time as you have. What role did majors play in that? Like, because for me, man, like it exposed me, like majors really exposed me to the levels of speed that like not just one person that I think is fast is going at. It's like, nope, there's like 12 to 15 people who all shoot this fast at an area match or something like that.
Yeah, I mean it's a great question. For me, I think the speed has come more from the like I've always wanted to increase my speed, and I think as I said, there of some really strong shooters at my local club, and there have been since I started who I've have looked at results and like, wow, I'm whatever 15 seconds slower or 20 seconds slower over 6 stages. Like that's not gonna work. But also, just starting like with the concept of speed mode and training in speed mode as an example of pushing speed to help your brain, figure out how to manage it and to increase it. I think has been a big part of that. And then majors, in particular, it's been more about how do I apply that? Because I do tend to be more sort of risk averse. And so, I'm kind of always more in the moment. I'm more afraid of a train wreck than I am of getting to the end of the match and just like, which, probably, in terms of results, might be better. The train wrecks are painful. But just figuring out how to get more access to that speed in when like the stakes feel high and the pressure's on and I'm worried about making a mistake, I think has been the biggest thing that I've worked on at majors and also locals. And there was a local, at some point over the last year, maybe, where I was like, that was one time where I was like, I'm just going to shoot this match super aggressively and see what happens. And I expected it to be a train wreck, and instead actually it was a good result. And so I was like, oh, that's really interesting. Okay. So, this is more manageable than I thought it was. So stuff like that, I think, has been the biggest thing from a match perspective.
Just like kind of seeing that, like when you experiment with something, when you try something, the results, like what the results actually are versus it just being theory. Like, oh, well, of course, if I went faster, it'd be this much better if I took a second off of every stage. But then it's like, well, if I actually go at that pace, that is 1 to 2 seconds faster, like what does that actually do for the results? Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, so I mean, a couple of things I noticed on that I was going to talk about anyway, right off the bat when Rick reviewing your match footage when you first started. One was your like super aggressive movement around the stage. I was like, that's awesome, right? That's the thing a lot of people struggle with, especially like combining that aggressive movement with like being as careful as you need to on the shooting, right? A lot of times if you're a little more careful on the shooting, it just carries right over into your movement, right? And so separating those things, how aggressive you're being on the shooting from the movement is crucial. Where did that come from? You naturally athletic? Did you do sports previously? Do you do any like specific movement training for that stuff, or like what do you think where did that come from for you?
Yeah, I don't think naturally athletic. It's not the description I would use.
Okay,
I am not big sports person. A little bit when I was younger, but the only sport I've really previously applied myself heavily to was rock climbing, which has some really interesting parallels, but not really physically, in terms of competition. Some grip strength, and then competition stuff and the use of chalk. That's kind of it. But so yeah, what's really funny is
pro chalk user.
Listen, people talk about round count, the amount of chalk I've used in my life.
Give Christian Saller a run for his money. I like it.
Without a doubt. Yeah, without a doubt. So I, to this day, when I watch videos of myself, I'm like, why am I moving so slowly? Like, what, like heart, like it drives me nuts. I always feel like I'm fucking wandering around between shooting positions. So I'm like, what are you doing? Like, hurry up. So I
Yeah.
have always like from pretty early on wanted to figure out how to move more aggressively. And to figure out how to get myself to move more aggressively. Cause it's just, I find that it's really hard to, when you're thinking about executing the stage, to actually move with sort of like anywhere close to kind of maximal aggression. And so I've spent a lot of time trying to make that more like make really aggressive movements more subconscious. And so, yeah, I mean, training wise, I definitely do a lot of training that involves movement. A lot of my dry fire, even when I'm inside, and definitely at the range involves movement. And when I do that, I try to be as aggressive as I can. And then some that, I have one of my close shooting friends and training partners, Jory Anderson, who I think, Billy, you mentioned in one of your videos back to me because he beat me.
Yeah.
And you were like, I don't know who this guy is.
Yeah.
And he was first and I was second.
Nice.
He's awesome. He's also a personal trainer professionally. So
Okay.
we have a little group of shooting friends who get together at the gym and train. And his approach is kind of just like, if you just get stronger generally, you don't have to do a bunch of super sport specific stuff for the movement side, which makes a lot of sense. So just trying to get stronger, doing some agility stuff. But I think a lot of it has been, when I'm training, just really trying to move as aggressively as I can, so that's what I do in matches. And I'm still like, why? What are you doing? Like, hurry up.
Yeah, totally.
I watch those videos.
Yeah, you hit a couple of notes there that I think that are huge. One is like the movement, even in dry fire, right? For almost all of us, we do more of that than live fire, hopefully. And certainly the consistency is much more in terms of, time every day versus, one day a week or whatever. And man, I just see so many people like just they have their little spot, they dry fire, and they're just standing still and practicing draws all day. And it's like, okay, if that's all you're trying to get better at, like that's the thing you're focusing on, maybe, right?
I feel attacked.
Like,
I feel attacked.
Working that movement piece in and being aggressive with it's huge. And I love what you mentioned, watching the video a couple of times. That's always been a great tool for me. Like, obviously your perception of what you're doing while you're shooting is a lot of times like very inaccurate, right? You feel like you're flying, and then you go to watch that video and like you said, you just, oh man, I'm just wandering around. I love that description. And so it kind of holds you accountable. So even in training though, I think you can use that video to like actually hold yourself accountable. Okay, what did that movement look like? And then to your point, it's like there's no easy button to get more aggressive. You just have to be more aggressive on purpose eventually, right? You have to do the thing, and that's really cool. The other thing I noticed in terms of speed that I think is interesting, watching especially some of like your locals back when you first started, like, and maybe you disagree with this, but I feel like a lot of your locals that you were shooting were very hosey to a certain extent, like very close, small bays, like a lot of like really aggressive shooting, which a lot of people don't like because it doesn't necessarily, mirror the difficulty you're going to see at majors and stuff, right? But the interesting thing there is like, okay, when that's like the match style you have, it does force you to shoot very aggressively at the match if you want any hope of being competitive, and it's kind of forgiving, so it kind of allows you to do that with a certain comfort level. And I feel like putting your actually, it's like, man, as much as I like putting difficult stuff and far partials and like working on that stuff in training, it's like at a certain point, if you actually want the speed, starting with the speed on like super fast, like aggressive, easy stuff, and actually forcing yourself to go properly fast on that is a right way to like build that speed baseline, I feel like.
Yes.
Right. Did you kind of see that and feel like even when you go to larger matches, you're able to kind of carry some of that speed, where it's appropriate into the different stage styles?
Yeah, I think so. We definitely do tend to have kind of more up close and personal local matches, which I think has played a role, and then also just the kind of speed mode training. But yeah, I definitely think with that up close stuff, it is what it means to do it fast is different than when it's something that's a little bit further out, and it's like it's fast. I think it's, some people kind of feel like that's easier. But I think you said, Billy, at one point on one of my video reviews, a close target's easier until you try to shoot it, in a,
properly.
with a 15 transition and a,
Right.
and a 15 split. And like,
Right.
that's really hard. And like when you're
Mhm.
moving through a stage aggressively and shooting really aggressively, even when the targets are close, if you're trying to get good hits, your brain and your eyes and everything has to work really fast. And so, yeah, I think that's definitely played a role. And I try to, in training, like I try not to just do far away partials and stuff like that. I try to have stuff, and really, I often try to often have something that's really close and some stuff that's far and hard, and thinking about the transitions between them. But then also shooting on the move and things like that with more aggressively, entering aggressively on a close target. Like the number of times I've entered aggressively on a friggin' 3-yard target and ended up with a Delta Charlie or a Charlie Mike or something. Like, how is it even possible to miss a target that close? Yeah, I think that part's really important. So I think that's definitely played a role in the speed component.
Yeah, I love that. It's like, man, everyone always likes to talk about easy targets and hard targets, and my thing is always like, it's all equally difficult if you actually push their standard high enough, right? On what you're trying to, way you're trying to actually engage those things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like you said, like that vision speed, snapping your eyes actually to the middle of even an open target at 5 yards. If you're trying to do that in 1500s, like that's super tough and probably should be a part of our training, right, as well, if you want to be able to execute on that.
Yeah, and even too, like what you were saying, Alastair, like I love that, talking about using a 3-yard or 5-yard open target as an entry target. Man, that's something that I was discovering. Like my entry targets were costing me so much freaking time on stages and matches, like full seconds. And I was like, what is going on here? Because this is the easiest target of the match. Like entries, footwork, all that stuff, like fairly good for me. Like I don't have to think about it. I feel stable, but I'm just waiting for that dot to actually sit in the middle of the alpha. And I'm like, you dummy, like you can take, like, sure, this should be like no stupid Charlies on this target, ideally, but you are doing it at the cost of your score, right? Like you're taking way longer than you should have if you had just gone, hey, you know what, 2 Charlies on this will not be the end of my match. In fact, it will be a little bit better. It'll keep my momentum up. And like using that as a kind of a confidence building target of, hey, I could basically shoot this as aggressively as I want, and like build confidence entering into a position like, oh, I'm coming into this position, I already have that target done. Everybody else is aiming at it, and that's the type of thing that I think you only kind of get from confidence building like that, and shooting those types of stages, for sure. Your local club, you said, is what is it called, the Big Salty range or whatever?
So yeah, the range is Big Salty, and then Slipsa is the club.
The club. Yep. So the Utah State match, just because I actually shot that one. Is that those stages, were they pretty representative of like what your locals are like?
I would say to some extent. I think Utah State was probably even more biased towards like up close and really fast shooting than our locals are. I think it was somewhat representative. We usually have a little bit, we will try to have a little bit more distance and things like that at the local matches, but I think to a big extent, I'd say it was pretty representative.
Yeah, because at that match, I mean, when the stages are designed like that, I truly felt like each stage was like a foot race, basically. Like starting point, ending point, and it's just the timer, and a lot of the shooting felt fairly equal, but it was just kind of like who can move the fastest. And like I think that is something that is, like you were saying, Billy, like that is a great thing to have available to you right off the bat, of a bunch of people just running and shooting full speed and figuring out how to be comfortable doing that. And then I think it's a way easier thing to replicate like accuracy under pressure in training than it is to replicate speed under pressure in training. So I think that's a freaking good path that you've landed in. Yeah,
I think I also think, when we kind of talk about targets being, there's like a target's hard or easy if your standard is don't get any mics on it. It's like, and it's like, for a lot of this, like I'll feel okay if I do okay. If I miss something or shoot a no shoot or whatever, I'm going to be really bummed out. If your standard is like, I want to win this match, then it's a totally different, what it means for something to be easy or hard is totally different. And so I think Utah State was a great example of, going into every single one of those stages, it was like, I'm, this timer is going to go off and I'm going to need to shoot 30 rounds in 10, whatever it is, like 10 seconds, 12 seconds, 15 seconds. And like, I'm going to need to get good hits because I had a stage where I did not get good hits. And it turns out you can't be so fast that bad hits are still going to work for you if you're trying to win. And that's like a whole other, like, there's no time to do any thinking or, it's like, you just gotta execute really effectively. And so that was an interesting match for me to figure out that kind of applied aggression where I could execute a stage plan really aggressively, but not so aggressively that it went off the rails. So yeah, I think it's interesting, different standards of what it means for something to be easy or hard.
Totally agree.
Definitely. Yeah. You hit another couple of interesting notes there. You talked about this wild concept of dry firing at the range, which why in the world would you ever do that?
Listen, it's a great question. So I credit where it's due. I didn't really start doing that until I took Joey Sauerland's class, and he's obviously huge on dry firing at the range. And then when I started to apply that idea of doing, really it's like a way of getting more reps in, and obviously being able to focus on more stuff. But the amount of time that you spend, not only, might you have limits in terms of how much ammo you can shoot and things like that, financially, et cetera. But the amount of time you spend like pasting and doing all the rest of it. And if you can, what we'll do is like I said, I, train with Jory Anderson and some other folks, and we'll have a drill or whatever we're doing. And you can just run dry reps, like just keep getting back to the back of the line over and over again, and really be thinking, whether it's speed mode or accuracy mode or match mode. And the volume is much higher. And obviously you can also pay attention to different things when, the gun's not going off. And I think it's still really important to do the live reps too.
Yes.
But I think it's been super, super valuable from a volume perspective and from the things you can pay attention to perspective.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's both so important. I think we discount dry fire sometimes, by being like, well, it's if you can live fire all the time, it's great. But like dry fire is clearly second best. But when you can't live fire, we can do some dry, like that kind of thing, right? And it's like, no, there are things that are distinctly better to work on in dry fire. Like you will get more value out of it shooting it dry than you will with bullets in your gun, for sure. Also vice versa, like both are important. It was so funny. I know that Joey's talked a lot about it this year. He's ramping up the live fire as well. When I was talking to him at a match not too long ago, he's like, I've started actually shooting this year and I'm getting better. And I was like, yeah, how about that? It's like dry fire is super good and important, but the live fire is good too, right?
Yeah.
So that's really cool. Yeah, I think dry fire at the range is a great thing, especially right for folks that maybe are a little bit constricted in the location or spot that they're dry firing. They're not necessarily doing all the movement stuff all the time. And being able to kind of observe what is my gun doing on that super aggressive entry without worrying about actually pressing the trigger and the recoil happening and all that kind of things. You can learn a lot of stuff from that. That's pretty cool. And then obviously talked about dry firing quite a bit. Like an hour a day, I would say is a pretty hefty dry fire schedule for sure. Is your focus in the dry fire versus live fire usually pretty similar? Are you focusing on different things? What's kind of how's your focus shift between the dry fire and live fire sessions?
It's pretty similar. I usually, when I dry fire, I still will use the same sort of the idea of speed mode, accuracy mode, match mode a lot.
Yeah.
Usually when I'm dry firing, I'll do like 20 or 30 minutes of more kind of standing still stuff and more transitions and things like that, and just moving the gun and getting the dot to stop where I want it in my eyes and things like that, designated target or whatever, or just transitions. And I'll do that, like bunch of speed mode reps, maybe some accuracy mode, some match mode reps, repeat. And then I'll do, I have a 500 square foot condo, so I just kind of like scoot some furniture out of the way and we'll set some stuff up and do some stuff that has more movement, and what that looks like depends a little bit on what I feel like I wanna try to improve, whether it's aggressive movement and then entries and exits, whether it's shooting on the move, blending, stuff like that. I'll vary like the target size and distance and things like that, and then usually at the range it's very similar. Less standing and shooting stuff generally, usually more emphasis, just because more space, more opportunity to really like move around and move aggressively. But often it's just setting something up, or making use of existing stuff that's up from a match or something, and figuring out some kind of scenario or drill that gets at something that we're trying to work on. And then similarly, bunch of dry reps and doing that outside, like on the range, in terms of really dialing in, like moving as aggressively as you can when you're not actually shooting. When you're doing it dry, you can really focus on just getting the gun where it needs to go as fast as possible and moving as aggressively as possible. And then, some dry match mode, dry runs, and then, a couple of live runs, and then kind of repeat.
It's really good. It's always interesting. I think that you talk about not doing a lot of the stand and deliver stuff on the range. I'm very much the same. I was just talking with Brennan about this recently. It's like, standing and doing doubles or build drills or whatever you're doing, like great in terms of hyper isolation and building like super predictable behavior in the gun and so forth. But it's also, I talk about this in class all the time. It's like, okay, well, if I do that, it's super easy to, get the gun behaving super predictably, but in a way that relies on me being in that like perfect static stance that I'm never actually in when shooting.
1000%.
Right? It's like, okay, it's like how many shots, I'll ask all the time in the class after we do that stage, and I'm like, wait, how many shots on this stage did I take in like my normal stand deliver stance? And it's like maybe 2 in the very last position, because you weren't going anywhere else, right? Other than that, it's totally different. So it's like, man, okay, well, how do you induce that and figure out what your structure should be behind the gun in a way that is sort of stance agnostic and works in all the different places? Like, well, probably by forcing yourself out of that perfect stance by doing the movement stuff, right? Making it more dynamic, coming into weird positions. And I think the benefit from that is huge for sure. So
something I heard Nathan Barnes say in an interview recently, he was like, he'll basically be kind of doing fundamental stuff, stand and deliver stuff at the range until it feels good. Right, until it's feeling pretty good, and then it's like, okay, now add more complexity to it, and you add complexity until things start falling apart, and you circle back to, okay, what's the thing that's falling apart? Probably it's can be traced to a fundamental, right? Because it's generally not like, oh, my footwork messed this up. Generally, it's like, well, I did not set myself up good. And so then when I did the shooting part, I didn't adequately prep my trigger or whatever. So now I have to go back and look at trigger prep a little bit more, whatever it is. But I think that's a really good approach, and to kind of managing both, because this year I've done a ton of stage work, like in practice, where I'll shoot a ridiculous number, a major match amount of stages in a day, and just scoring everything hit factor. And there's a ton of value in that, but it also came to a level of neglecting the like stand and deliver fundamentals. And I started discovering some stuff with improving my fundamentals at a match. And I was like, well, this feels great. So I need to go back and make sure that I can replicate that. So I think as soon as, like, especially for good shooters who are shooting at a very high level, like, hey, make sure the fundamentals are there, make sure they're sound, quickly move on, and then also be willing to quickly go back as well. I think that's cool. And from the highest level shooters that I know, that I've heard talk about their training routines, JJ and Eric and Christian and all these guys, like, they all say basically the same thing. They have some sort of cycle where it's like, hey, I'm pushing consistency on stage type deals, and then it's right back to fundamentals, stand and deliver, grip sights, trigger, that type of stuff. So finding that balance, I think, is a little bit different for everybody, but I do think there is basically a correct balance for everyone to be kind of cycling through that stuff.
Yeah, and I think it depends on like where you're at in your training season.
Yes.
Also, right? If it's you know, with how many majors Alastair's shooting this year, he's constantly in major match mode prep, I suppose. But it's like, yeah, okay, so the week before a major, am I going to be trying to learn how to get faster and more accurate? Probably not so much. Like, you're not going to really do skill development the last couple days before your major. So it is about consistent execution. And that's where it's like, okay, I'm probably not doing doubles. I'm just shooting stages. Like, great, right? On board. And then it's like, okay, if I've got, you know, a couple months now of good training time, okay, maybe it's time to go back to that skill development piece, right? And go back to the drawing board, try things, experiment a little bit.
Kind of on that note, I'd be curious, both of you guys, what you guys have found using major matches to experiment, especially when you've got a pretty heavy season. I mean, Billy, I know you've got to be shooting what 10 plus majors this year.
Haven't counted, but yeah, for sure.
It's a lot. I mean, you've been to most of the ones I've been to. I'm going to be over 10, I think, for the year, which is a lot for me. Freaking 20 is insane. What are your thoughts on kind of experimenting with things at majors? Like, Alastair, you were talking about, you used a local the other day to just push aggression and kind of see what happens. You guys ever mess with that with like, you know what, I'm just going to focus on points. Like, I'm really going to try to shoot, you know, without a doubt, 95+% of the points on every stage. And then obviously for the whole match, or like, hey, you know what, I'm just going to full send everything, or I'm going to take risky stage plans on everything and see how that works out and stuff like that. Have you guys messed with that with majors specifically? Not so much the locals, but actually with a major match?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, for me, it's like, I think a couple things I would say on that, right? Number one, obviously it depends for people how many majors you're shooting. Like, that's a big thing. If you're shooting a bunch, like, you have more opportunity to experiment, not really care so much, right? So if you're shooting 1 or 2 a year, probably don't do that. Like, actually just do your best, and so you can actually get an assessment of where your skills are.
Sure.
Right. Also, I think it probably depends on the quality of your locals. So, you know, I think for a lot of people, you know, that are decent shooters, depending on what part of the country you're in, like, your locals are a chance to get good stage reps, but you're not actually getting much of an assessment on like where your skills are at, because you're just going to win your local, right?
Correct.
I'm fortunate enough to have some very good shooters in my area that I can like stack up against and like really see. Even if they're not, you know, like, so I mean, I'm pretty much always going up against like Chris Tilley in open at my main local match. So I'm always going to win carry optics, but I'm never going to win that overall. And so I can get a really good estimation of, okay, am I in that 5% gap? Did that drop me down to 10% and so forth? So I do a lot of experimenting there and see how things work, right? And so I'm fortunate to be able to do that locally and not have to do it at majors so much. So I don't do a ton of it at majors. For me, it's like, what I notice about my major performance is like, okay, I always try to focus on what's the biggest thing that held me back from being where I want to be. And it's almost always not, hey, you were too fast, or you didn't shoot enough points, or what. It's there. Okay, you made a big mistake there. That was a deviation from what you meant to do, right? And so the focus is like, okay, actual process adjustment, right? What do I want to tweak about my process on future stages or future matches to avoid those like big mistakes? So really, just like, for me, it's usually a consistency focus at majors, but not saying that's right or wrong. That's usually me. What you got?
Yeah, for me, I pretty much, so the things I try to experiment with at majors are the things that I can only really do at majors that I can't. So not really about like shooting technique or anything like that. It's basically all about the mental side of things, or the routine side of things, or the strategy side of things. And basically at every major, I'm trying to win, to do the best I can. I don't really ever take an approach that's like, I'm gonna do something different that I know is gonna mean I'm not gonna win, but I'm gonna do it because I'm gonna learn something. I think that can be totally valid, but I'm constantly trying to figure out, what can I do at these major matches to maximize the chances that I can like access all my skill and perform as well as I can. So I'm always trying to do the best that I can, and I'm usually trying different things to figure out what's going to help me do that. So whether that's, you know, do I dry fire in the morning before I go to the range, or like, what am I eating, to like, you know, when am I walking stages? Am I taking videos? Am I watching the videos? To like, what am I doing in the make ready? And what's like I said, like what's a lot of it's been around, like, what's the kind of concept I'm bringing into executing against this? What do I do if I make a mistake? And, how am I using scores, like stuff like that. I'm experimenting with different approaches to it, but I'm always trying to get the best result. And so I'm very quickly noticing, what do I think is helping or not? And applying it that way.
So let me see if I can get this straight, because I think this is a very helpful discussion for a lot of folks. So you're very willing to experiment with things that you think will get you a better score. But so for instance, you're not going to go and be like, every single target of this whole major I'm going to shoot on the move. It's like, well, that's not going to get you a better score.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But you could do something where it's like, every open target inside of 15 yards, I'm going to try to shoot on the move, as long as the stage, sets that up that way. It's like, okay, well, like that's fair. Or I am going to shoot big poppers on the move on this stage. That's maybe not something I would typically want to do, but I'm going to try it because I'm pretty sure it will be better for my score overall. Is that kind of what you're saying there?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I think it can be kind of stage planning or stage strategy, stuff like that. And even sometimes it can be more general. It can be, I feel like I've noticed that I'm actually trying to shoot stuff on the move that I don't need to, or that's not actually making me faster.
Yeah.
So I'm going to look for places where, I might lean towards actually just getting there and shooting standing, whereas normally I might try to do it on the move. And then, like, what does that do to my score? What does that do to my score, in comparison to people who I often, kind of rate myself against? And then also, like, over the course of a whole match, what have I applied mentally or process wise that's not specific to a stage or a particular type of shooting, but that's just general to kind of shooting a competition? And what difference did that seem to make? That's been a big part of it too.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah,
that's
I think
really cool.
it's almost like, for me, like the kind of stuff you're talking about is almost really like confirmation more than experimenting, in the sense of, if you actually prove something works in your training first, right? So like Brennan, you mentioned, like, hey, I'm going to shoot big poppers in the move or whatever. It's like, okay, if I've been doing that in training for the last 2 months and it works, then okay, starting to do that in a major isn't really experimenting anymore. It's just like, okay, I know that I can do this now. Right?
Yeah.
Can I actually execute it under pressure in a match environment? Right? A little bit of situational stuff, because no stage is ever the same. But it's basically confirmation. And let me confirm, does this actually work in a major match environment the way that I think it does, based upon what I've been doing in training? I think that's huge. Like, I wouldn't just not shoot steel on the move, like in training or at your locals or whatever, and be like, yes, nationals, this is where I'm going to try this.
Yeah.
Right? Like, not probably not so much, right?
I think it's almost like, well, at least for me, I have to prove to myself that this is something that I should be doing.
Yeah.
Right. Like, hey man, like, you should sometimes shoot big poppers on the move, or sometimes you should shoot little poppers on the move, because there's nothing else to do. And like, you might as well shoot at it. And if you have to take a couple extra shots, like, no big deal. You can hit it when you stop moving also, which is what your original plan was. Or you could be done with a steel array and move on to something else, and it's kind of like, I know in theory that should work, or I watch another shooter who's better than me do it, and I'm like, yeah, well, I can't do that. It's like, well, you actually can. You have the skill to do it. You're just not sure of it. And so once you prove it to yourself, then it starts to build that confidence. And now you have all this confidence going into stages of like, hey, there's nothing I can't handle or try or tweak, depending on, you're talking like stage or match strategy and watching scores and what do I need here and that type of thing. It's like, you can definitely pull some of those things out. All right, I got to push on these last 2 or 3 stages. Where can I push? Oh, I can push here. I can shoot this steel on the move. I can do, I can do this sequence on the activator, and stuff like that, which is super cool. But like you're saying, Billy, it comes back to training and like, what have you been able to accomplish in training? And then, all right, prove it to yourself that this can work. Donovan Moore, he was saying the other day, we shot a Michigan sectional, Justin, myself, and Donovan, and Justin and I both, like, we had horrible matches, and Donovan was like, hey, this is what we train for. Like this is why we do this, is to come out and test ourselves at these types of matches. And like that stuck with me really hard. It was like, man, I've been training for something and just completely poop the bed, like completely. But it motivates you to figure some new stuff out, because whatever I did here, like just straight up did not work, even if I thought it did. So cool stuff.
Yeah, you hit on something that's really cool for me too there, Brennan, which is like you mentioned, or important. You mentioned seeing like a higher level shooter than you do something on a stage you're not sure you can do.
Yeah.
So many people in terms of match homework are only looking at like your performance and your results, you individually, right?
Yeah.
Whereas like to me, like that is such a missed opportunity.
That caps your potential.
If you're sitting there watching a better shooter than you do something on a stage that you're not sure you can do, and it results in a stage win. Okay, that should be a piece of homework that you are taking home going, okay, I need to be able to do that, because obviously human beings can do that with a gun, right? So therefore I want to be able to do that, right? And it's like, okay, so you have two options. Either just identify that if you're certain it's not something you can do, maybe it's a major where you don't want to take a chance, whatever. At the very least, take that as a piece of homework. At maybe even the next level, try it. Right. One or two things are going to happen. Either I've seen it happen time and again. If you actually try it, if you see someone go before you and you're like, I don't know if I can do that. If you try it, one or two things are going to happen. Either one, it actually works and you're like, oh, okay. Maybe it's a bit of a confidence boost there. This is something I can actually do. If I actually just, put the dot in the middle of the steel and wait to see what I need to see and have my trigger prepped, I can actually shoot stuff like that on the move. Okay, cool. Or like it doesn't work. And again, it just confirms that homework. Yep. There's something I definitely need to work on for sure. In training. And to me, like, especially when you're at that level that you can go to that local and squad with people that are better than you, but even at majors, that is such a good source of identifying, things in your game you need to work on, is just by actually watching other shooters and what they can do, right? You can really pick up some cool stuff there.
Yeah, I've learned personally a ton. I'd say like probably the biggest influence has been Brantley, Miriam over like the past year, of just like, hey, like there's nothing that when like just watching him stand and shoot that he can do that I cannot do. Like,
right.
like physically manipulating the gun, pulling the trigger, even splits on difficult targets. I'm kind of watching him shoot like, yep, that's all stuff that I can do and replicate on demand basically. But then he puts it into a stage and applies it in a way that I'm just blows my mind. I'm like, how the actual hell are you 6 seconds faster than me on this stage? Like, I feel like C-class, right? And there's just a level of confidence and stuff that he knows that he can do and get away with. And I was like, all right, like I have got to try. Like if he can do this 6 seconds faster than me, then like I can at least do this 3 seconds faster than I am currently doing. Right. But like right. Just trying to improve, like you said, Billy, like your own stage run just by analyzing your own video. I mean, I can look at maybe see, okay, I could easily have shaved off maybe 0.75 seconds here. But then you see somebody else is just like, oh, okay, never mind. I can actually shave like many seconds. It's like, but it's going to involve me doing something that I would absolutely never do in a match, so either training or, like you said, confirmation.
One of my favorite things to do is put my video and someone else's video, like literally side by side, and sync the beeps up, whether it's someone at a local who just shot a stage better than me, or, Christian Seiler. I remember I did it with first person view of a area 1 stage or something. And just look to see, is there a moment where, it's like, it's in the same plan. Is there a moment where all of a sudden they gain 3 seconds? Or is it like every single thing? It's like how, like with Christian Tyler, it's like how fast he breaks that first shot on the next target, like over and over and over again. And I just watch, the videos, and it's like, it's kind of the same thing, but then like his video is over, and then I have like, 5 more seconds of me shooting and showing clear. And you're like, okay, that tells me something too about what I need to work on.
Yeah, it's those little subtle things a lot of times, right? And it's not like a big glaring like, oh, well, he's doing this thing and I did that thing. It's just like that little subtle matter degrees, but every single time, right, with that consistency, and it really, really stacks up.
Yeah, and better application of the stuff that we all know. It's like, yeah, have the gun up, ready to shoot, pre-aimed. As soon as the target's visible, shoot it. Like, I probably every A class and above shooter probably knows that, right? Like, in theory, at least, right? And it's just, yeah, but matter of actually doing it is, you know, some people are in another league in terms of like always taking that advantage.
Yep, love it. A lot of good stuff, gents. Thanks so much for. I think that's probably about enough for today. Thanks so much for coming on, Alastair, and being with us. Hopefully, some good tips and pearls in there for folks looking to get better. And let us know if you have any questions. I'll keep an eye out below. We'll try to get to those like always. But I think that'll do it for us until next time. Thanks, guys.